Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Regina Carmine, and I have been a certified financial counselor, as well as a HUD certified housing counselor. I've been at this for about 15 years. And today we're actually talking about something that I am kind of passionate about. Credit reports, credit scores. One of the reasons is because there's so much bad information out there regarding the credit world. And I'm hoping that I can clear up any questions you all might have and maybe inspire you to maybe even make an appointment with the FEC. So here's what I would like to do is before I start sharing my screen, I would like to encourage anybody who has any questions while I'm going to throw something in the chat box, ask a question, raise your hand. I don't mind stopping. The way that I learn is when I hear somebody talking about something, if it doesn't sound quite right to me, I want to jump up and say, can you give me more information? I don't mind that at all. So I'd like to ask you all to please, do the same with me. So hopefully I'm sharing my screen right now. And what you are looking at is the cover page to our understanding credit discussion that we're going to have today. And again, if anyone has any questions, jump in, ask right away. So again, I work for the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center. I'm one of the 5 certified counselors on staff. We're kind of a nifty organization because we're a joint venture between the city of Pittsburgh, Neighborhood Allies, Advantage Credit Counseling, and the Cities for Financial Empowerment, which actually was started in New York in 2008 by Mayor Bloomberg at that time, and they've been spreading across the country since then. I'll tell you more about what the FEC does as we go along and at the end, and I cannot speak highly enough about our work and the fact that we do it free of charge for anyone who's a resident of Allegheny County. But let's talk about credit. Because without a doubt, when folks come to us with their financial goals, one of their main goals is frequently, I want to improve my credit score. And of course, all of the counselors are different, but one of my questions is always, why do you want to improve your credit score? What do you know about your credit score? Credit's an important thing. We're going to discuss why it's important, what is credit, why we need it, the cost of credit, the difference between scores and reports, the 5 factors of FICO, and that's the Fair Isaac Corporation. And then most importantly, because this is where the information gets bad, how to safely build credit, improve credit, increase credit and your score, and doing it yourself. You don't have to pay anyone a penny to help you with your credit. So what is credit? I suspect you all know, and I suspect that most, if not all of you, have some type of credit. But what it is it's a promise to get something now and pay for it later. Credit was a rare thing. It was only something that was used once in a blue moon for a big expense. Not that long ago, we didn't buy groceries on credit. We didn't pay our utility bills on credit. We used them for big ticket items. But credit's been around for as long as money has been around. I absolutely love this slide. I hope you don't think it's hokey, but this is probably a copy of the very first credit receipt, credit slip ever made. This is actually a clay tablet from 2,000 years ago, sorry, 4,000 years ago. Basically what it says is that this person, Amel Mira, signed off on this saying that he was going to pay 330 measures of barley to the person who held on to this tablet. So although of course I wasn't there 4,000 years ago, I'm going to tell you what this is all about. Amel Mira wanted to plant a field of barley. He didn't have the oxen or the cows. Maybe he didn't even have the plow. So he had to borrow them from somebody. He had to get credit from someone. Hey, can I borrow your oxen so I can plant my field? And when the field comes in, I'll give you 330 measures of barley. This is credit. This is old credit, but this is credit nonetheless. The important thing at the bottom of this slide too is something that's still going on right now. And that is, it is owed to the bearer of the tablet. So if Amel Mira promised the guy who he borrowed the oxen from that he would give him the barley, but then that person later said, hey, I need to borrow something from you. I want to barter with you. Can you help me build my house? He handed over this tablet to that guy. Same thing happens nowadays with credit. Some of you might be aware of accounts being sold, mortgages going to different servicers, or if you don't pay a bill, it goes to a collection agency. That's exactly what this is all about. But that barley goes to the person who holds onto this tablet. So thanks for letting me get that little history lesson out of my system. There are what are called the 5 C's of credit, but basically what it is when a lender pulls your credit. And when I say a lender, this is somebody who's offering to extend credit to you, a mortgage company, a car dealer, a credit card, a student loan company. What they're looking at is your credit worthiness. Is this person going to pay me back? Okay. This is the idea behind credit reports. It is a written copy of saying how dependable you are for repaying those loans. Now, Amel Mira, our barley growing friend in the previous slide, they didn't have credit reports then. But you know what? If he had a bad crop or if he like skipped town with those oxen, I can guarantee you the folks that loaned that stuff to him were talking about him, and he got a bad reputation, and he may not have gotten oxen the next time that he needed it or asked for it because his reputation preceded him. That's what creditworthiness is all about. So lenders really do look at the 5 C's, and the first one is your character. All of these 5 C's show up in your credit report. The character says basically if you make your payments on time or not. It's that simple. The capacity addresses whether you have the ability to repay those loans. Do you have a job? Do you have income? The commitment, again, are you consistently making your payments on time? The collateral, now the collateral is essentially something that you pledge as repayment. For those of us with car loans, the car is the collateral for that loan. But it is something pledged as repayment, just like the barley was for Amel Mira. And finally, the conditions. You're going to pay it back over the course of 2 years, 3 years, a 30-year mortgage, and so on. So these are the features that lenders look at when they pull your credit report. And just as a quick little side note, lenders don't just pull your report to see a magic number, all right? Some loan products, mortgages, you need to have a minimum of 620, 640, and so on. But they don't just look at that number. They look at what's inside there, a history of on-time payments, and things along those lines. That's what a lender sees when they pull your credit report. However, you can assess your own credit validity. You know all about yourselves. Do you have the ability to repay something? In which case you wouldn't want to take out a loan if you know you can't pay it back. Is your job stable? Do you have assets? Do you have a few $100s in the bank so that you can keep up with these payments? Or if there's some difficulty beyond that. And likewise, the performance, your ability to make those payments on time. Someone asked that beautiful question. Those C's are all equal in value. They really are. Because, and I'll give you a good example. You can have a bankruptcy showing up on your credit report. Now, bankruptcies generally imply that you overextended your debt, but you could actually make good on-time payments. So that indicates that your character shows that you make on-time payments, but that, the collateral might have been overinflated or something along those lines. So that was a really good question. Thank you for asking that. All 5 of those C's are equally important. But knowing a lot about your own credit, in my opinion, is incredibly important. You shouldn't have to have a lender tell you about it, okay? So the question is really, why do we need credit? And I think that you all know that answer. I'm going to go back again to our barley growing friend. Until recently, credit was only used for something that was out of reach, something that you couldn't pay for out of pocket. So the idea behind credit is to buy things that we couldn't afford otherwise. I don't know anyone, I was about to say too many people, I don't know anybody who could buy a car with the cash in their pockets or a house. Those were the things that credit was reserved for. And I don't want to get into a great philosophical discussion, unless you all want me to, of course. But credit has kind of morphed since the 1950s, as a matter of fact. It was used only for houses, automobiles, and so on. But credit's become a much easier thing to use now. And needless to say, that's how a lot of us get into trouble. So it's to buy things we can't afford, but it is not income. A lot of people take tally of their credit limits on their credit cards, and they think that that means they have additional income, and it does not, all right? But the overall idea, the goal behind credit is to just have access to bigger and better credit. So that being said, there are two basic types of credit. They are secured and unsecured. I almost feel like I want to ask if anybody knows the difference between these two, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Secured credit, unless someone wants to jump in. Oops, I didn't mean to advance that. Secured credit basically is secured with an item as collateral. The most common types of secured credit are cars and houses. If any of you have a car loan, there is in the documentation of your car loan something that says if you miss too many payments, we get the car back. Just for a point of clarification, all credit has a paper trail. That's what that clay tablet was on that second slide. All credit has a paper trail. Your credit card statement has tiny fine print. Your mortgage has it, your car has it, but secured credit means if you miss a payment, we come back and get the collateral. Unsecured credit is stuff like credit cards, student loans. If you default on your credit card bill, they're not going to come get the socks out of your sock drawer that you brought with a credit card. But secured credit, they have the ability to come back and take that item that is the collateral. So the cost of credit is an important thing. And this is one of the main reasons when I meet with folks initially and they tell me they want to increase their credit, I ask them why. Now, if they just want to have a high credit score so they can march around and say, well, I've got an 800, the inspiration is not exactly there because, you know, you can't wear that on your sleeve and say, I've got an 800. Nobody really cares that much. Hey, Michaela, that's funny. I don't know if you can all read the chats. Her driver's working as an agent of the credit card company. That's actually really funny. But anyway, the idea behind wanting to increase your credit is so that when you do need it later down the road, your high credit score makes credit more reasonable for you, less expensive. And that's basically the idea behind interest, okay? Interest is the fee that you pay to access credit. There is interest in your car payments, in your mortgage payments. There's interest on your credit card payments, if you carry over a balance, that is. The higher your credit score is, the lower your interest rate is, because a higher score suggests here's somebody who pays their loans on time. They're not going to run out on you. They've got good character. All righty. So the higher your score is, the lower your interest rate because you're less of a risk for the credit grantor, the creditor, the credit grantor. So for example, and this is a hypothetical chart. There are a lot of online tools that let you work up this sort of stuff. But if you need to borrow a $5,000 on a 4-year car loan, if you've got spectacular credit, 800s or above, they'll give you a 5% interest rate. Actually, if you're 800 or above, they might give you 0%. But if it's at 5%, on your $5,000 loan, you're going to pay an extra $527 in interest over the course of 4 years. But as your score goes down, and a score goes down because you have a tendency to miss payments, you have delinquencies, all sorts of reasons, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. As your score goes down, your interest rate goes up. So that if you look at the difference between a 5% interest rate, giving you an extra $527 over the life of the loan, and a 25% interest rate, which is almost $3,000 additional dollars. So there's a $5,000 car with good credit, you paid $5,527 for it. With not so good credit, you paid almost $8,000 for that car. So again, when I meet with potential clients and they tell me why they want to increase their credit score, it's kind of nice to hone in on the why. I want to buy a car. I want to qualify for a mortgage. But to want to increase your credit score just for the heck of it, I'm not all that enthusiastic about it. But again, I follow the directions of my clients.
Regina,
Yes.
someone has their hand raised.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't see that. They can speak? I don't see it at all on my screen. Katie, thank you for telling me. Who is it? What would you like to ask me, please?
My name is Bernice. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand in the middle of the conversation.
No, that's great, Bernice. I'd rather hear your voice than mine. What have you got?
Okay, so I was wondering when you were saying the secure loans and the secure now, but one of them will come like put like a lien against you, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was remembering I had one with Capital One, and I had lost my job and everything, and they took me to the magistrate and all that good stuff. But I did pay them off. So
yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And remember I said about that paper trail. All credit has a paper trail.
yes, ma'am.
People are more intimidated by a mortgage because it's a 33-page document and it says you don't make the payments, we get the house back. People, for the most part, me and you and most all of us probably, Bernice, we don't read the fine print on our credit card statements. And once a year, they usually send you something that says updated terms. I mean, you need a magnifying glass to read that, right? Yeah, but in there, it does say that they can put a lien against you. They can take you to court if you do not make those payments. You're absolutely right. I could talk about credit like all week. I'm not kidding you. There's usually, for most credit grantors, there's usually like a little break-even point where they won't bother taking someone to the magistrate if it's below a certain amount, because they have to pay attorney's fees too.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's above a certain point, they're going to do that. And they actually do. And we probably can't get into that at this point. Katie might yell at me. They can garnish wages. They can garnish Social Security. Now it has to get pretty far down the road and has to be a pretty big amount to get to that point. But yeah, it's all in the fine print though. And nobody reads that fine print. And that's what's kind of funny, is that clay tablet is 4,000 years old and it's still around. To me, that is hilarious, because I throw my statements away as soon as I read them.
Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly. Any other questions before I move on? Katie, please tell me if anyone else has any questions, okay?
Doesn't look like it yet. So.
Okay, great. And again, thank you for interrupting me, Bernice, really. So let's talk about the difference between credit reports and credit scores, because there is a blur and a lot of folks don't know the difference. So the credit report is actually a document that details the state of your credit activity. Now, this is not the best description in my opinion, but it talks about your payment history, your utilization, and your history of inquiries. Most importantly, I want to make sure everyone's clear on what does and doesn't show up on your credit report, okay? Credit reports usually have 3 types of credit that show up. One is called revolving credit, and that is your credit cards, your credit card balances, because they revolve up and down like a roller coaster. The second kind of credit that shows up is what's called installment credit. That's where you borrow a chunk of money and make even payments, car payments, student loan payments, personal loans. Those are installment loans. And then finally, mortgage payments show up as well. A lot of people I meet with are really disappointed to see that, like, their water bill doesn't show up, their rent doesn't show up, the stuff that you pay every day. Now, there are ways to get those things to show up on your credit report if you don't have a lot of credit. And we can talk about that more later, as we get closer. But for the most part, it details mortgage payments, installment loans, revolving credit, and your activity regarding how you paid them. Did you pay those on time, and so on. Now, it also has a section of not so good information. Delinquent accounts, which means delinquent means you're behind. Collection accounts, which means you didn't pay that barley back, so they sold that to somebody else who's going to make phone calls and drive you crazy. So there are other fields, but it's important to know what does and doesn't show up on credit reports. Now, bad information will stay on your credit report for 7 years. And this is why in the credit world, time is your friend, okay? So every month when you make your car payment on time, it's a wonderful thing. It's like you get a gold star on your forehead, like you did when you were in kindergarten. You just kind of chug along and your score goes up. All righty. However, if you defaulted on your car payment and it turned into a repossession and they closed it out, it's still going to stay on your report for 7 years. The further you get away from that car repossession, like if they just repossessed my car last month, my credit took a heck of a hit. But if they took it a year ago, it's less of a hit. If it's 6 years ago, just leave it alone, because it's 7 years, it's going to disappear and nobody knows it ever happened. It's always a fun thing for me as a counselor when people I am worked with say, well, you know, I had a bankruptcy, it was just terrible. And when I pull their credit report, I say, you know what? Don't talk about your bankruptcy anymore, because it's not on here anymore. Nobody knows about it. No one needs to know about it. It's a wonderful thing. To my knowledge, it's the only part of your life that you could actually say it didn't happen, because there's no credit reporting of it. Anyway, that information stays on for 7 years. All information does. But if it's good information, like you're still using a credit card that you've had for 12 years, it stays on longer than that, which is a really good thing. So the report is just the detailing of your active trade lines, your active accounts, if you pay those on time, and so on. The score itself is just the rating that they give you based upon your credit reports. Now, there are 3 main credit reports out there, 3 credit bureaus. They are TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. They are all equally good. None of them is better than another. That's another piece of bad information. Some people think one matters more than another. Not true at all. All righty. Most mortgage companies, and a mortgage is kind of like the top shelf of credit out there. All righty. So most mortgage lenders pull what's called a tri-merge credit report, which means that they pull all 3 credit bureaus and they use the score that's in the middle. And each of them will have a slightly different score because they use different algorithms to do their calculating. But there's also kind of another fun story behind why they have different scores. And I don't want to run short on time, which I can do very easily. But anyway, someone asked a question what a FICO score is. That's a terrific question, because FICO is what a lot of people say is, I know my FICO. FICO stands for the Fair Isaac Corporation. And the Fair Isaac Corporation is a group that was started by, believe it or not, Mr. Fair and Mr. Isaac, where they decided to compile this credit data on behalf of merchants and who own grain mills and so on. But anyway, there is not a FICO score. There are 3 independent scores. So when folks say, I know my FICO score, that's a broad term, okay? And there's a website, it's a great website called myfico.com, and they explain a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you now. But folks who are in the know that there's not a FICO score, there are actually 3. TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. I hope that kind of answered the question. Here's the reason it's important to know that there are 3 different ones, because this is something that most people don't know, and most people are very surprised when I tell them that. The reason there are 3 different scores is because when you make your car payment and you send your car payment into your lender and they write down that they received it on time, that car lender then turns around and says, hey, TransUnion, we got that payment on time. Hey, Experian, hey, Equifax. But every time the car dealer reports on your good behavior, they actually have to pay TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax just a fraction of a penny. It's not much, but they pay to report it. That's how those guys make money, okay? Some car dealers, some banks, some small lenders don't report because they save money, okay? So maybe your car dealer only reports to TransUnion and Experian, but not Equifax. So when you make those good payments on time, Equifax doesn't know to give you credit for it. That's why it's always important to look at all 3 of those reports and review them for accuracy and to make sure that, that everything is above board and that no one's stolen your identity. As a matter of fact, I hope you all have pencils and papers nearby, because on the next screen, I'm going to give you the site that tells you to check your credit reports annually to make sure that the information is accurate. This is the site. It's annualcreditreport.com. Please be careful and make sure that this is the one you go to. There are scammers everywhere, all righty? Bad information and scammers. This is the annualcreditreport.com site is navigated by the federal government. And prior to COVID, you got one free credit report from each bureau every 12 months. So I used to tell folks, you know, go home, check your Experian report, and then mark it on the calendar. 4 months from now, check TransUnion. 4 months later, check Equifax. And that way, 4 months, you're always getting a free report. You can read over it to make sure that someone didn't open up an account in your name, check it for the accuracy, and so on. So, well, this is a good question, okay, based upon what I had just mentioned. Thank you, Katie, for putting the site up. Based upon what I just mentioned about those 3 reports, this is why all 3 reports are equally important, okay? So because, and this is why, again, mortgage-wise, they will do what's called a tri-merge, pool all 3 reports. Lenders know that not all credit grantors report to all 3 credit bureaus. They know that, all righty. All lenders will know that. There are ways that you can get different kinds of payments. You can get certain utilities. You can do what's called a self-reporting if you need to bolster what's on your credit report. And there is a way to do that. And I believe there's a slide at the end of the screen that I can show you how to do that. But again, comparing these two. So for example, when we meet with individuals for our one-on-one sessions, we do a pool of their Experian credit report. But then I give everyone the information for this site and say, go home, pull your TransUnion and Equifax too. Compare them. This is the important thing. I do want to give you all a heads up. When you go on annualcreditreport.com, you will not get a score. Okay. You have to pay for the score, but don't pay for the score. All righty. Because I'm going to tell you what you need to know to assess what your score is, even without that. I will let you know that when we meet with individuals with the FEC, you do get a score. Okay. And something that I'm not sure shows up on this set of slides or not, but it's important to tell you this now. When you check your own credit report, or when a financial organization such as ours checks it for you, it is what's called a soft pull. So it does not affect your score, not in the least bit. Okay, it's kind of like you're walking very lightly in there. When somebody who's looking to give you credit pulls your credit report, it's called a hard pull. That would be if you sign up to get a new credit card, if you try to get a car loan, if you try to get a mortgage. When they pull your credit report, it's called an inquiry and it's called a hard pull, and that will affect your score. All right. Beautiful question. Who is this? Michaela, you're wonderful. All right. I'd like to hear your voice because you brought up something that I told myself I wasn't going to bring up. This is the only site where you should be checking your credit report. Okay. And I'm not sure if everyone has access to the chat or not, but there are sites out there. And one of the more well-known one is called Credit Karma. And I will be perfectly honest with you, and I'm just one little cog in a giant wheel, and I've not gotten into trouble yet over the past 10 years for this. Credit Karma is terrible for all sorts of reasons. Bear with me. This is not on the slides, but this is an important thing. This is information. Share it with everyone you love. Credit Karma is terrible for 3 reasons, okay? Reason number 1 is when you sign up for it, and just so you know, I signed up for it about 10 years ago when it was first getting popular, maybe 12, because I heard clients raving about it. I thought, well, we got to see what this is all about. And here's what it's all about. When you sign up and you give them all your personal information, your name, your birthday, your address, your social security number, when you look at the bottom and scroll down and there's teeny tiny print, you have to then check a box, and that box gives them permission to sell all of your personal information to the highest bidder. Okay, so nothing is kept private when you're with Credit Karma. In fact, if any of you have been on it, think about this, and I'm not going to pick on anyone because it happened to me because I needed to find out myself a decade ago. When you sign up and you check that box, within hours, you're getting offers for free credit cards, usually from like Capital One, because they verge on being unscrupulous, in my opinion. But they sell your information to credit card companies who's pre-approve you for credit, and they give you these offers. So number 1, you're not private with them, and I'm a fan of privacy. Number 2, they sell out all your information, and people get pre-approved offers, and very often individuals' scores fall. as a result of opening up credit. Credit Karma doesn't have financial counselors on staff. They have money-making entities who are selling your information to the highest bidder. In fact, you can check this out after we hang up. You can look it up on Google that Credit Karma just a few weeks ago, I think it was the $30 million lawsuit that they had to settle to people who were given false offers of pre-approved credit, and their scores tanked after that. And then the other thing too, that's really important, is that the score that they give you, this sounds like a crazy thing, and I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. It's not a real score per se. So I remember I told you that there are usually mortgage loans, installment loans, and revolving credit. Those are the three kinds of credit that show up on credit reports. Each of those weigh things a little differently. So I often have people say, hey, I just was on Credit Karma this morning and I had a 720. And when I pull it, their score is like a 660. Because Credit Karma gives you inflated numbers that don't use any of the algorithms of either mortgage lenders or installment loans or of revolving creditors. Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right about Capital One. Is really Capital One. They're in the ranks with me with Credit Karma. They're really verge on unscrupulous. If you don't hear anything else that I say today, please read the print, read the fine print, because every line of credit has a paper trail. And think of our friend Amomira and his barley. It starts back there. So Katie put the annual credit report address in the chat box. But again, until the end of this year, you can get one free every week, which is great. So when you sign up, get one TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. It's going to change back and go back to one free every 12 months. But when you review it, make sure your name's spelled properly. Make sure your address is right. Make sure that all of the things that are listed on there are actually your lines of credit. If there's a JCPenney's credit card and you don't have one, there will be a phone number there for you to call. All righty. And I'll tell you how to handle doing something about that. Yes, you can cancel Credit Karma at any point in time. Oh, I didn't get to the other reason I didn't like it. But yes, when you log on to it, all you have to do is hit the unsubscribe. Make sure you check the boxes to get off of all of their mailings as well. One of the last things along those lines, I know that people say that nowadays they check, I ask about their credit. What do you know about your credit? They check it every day. Just so you guys know, that's what Credit Karma does. They're like pulling you in, like the candy aisle at the end of the grocery store. There's no sense in checking your credit every day. Credit scores don't change every day. It would be like going on a diet and getting on the scale every 15 minutes. It doesn't work that fast. You make one car payment per month. You make one, maybe two credit card payments a month. And by the time you make that car payment and you send it on the 1st and they mark it down, sometimes they even give you, they wait for 10 days for everyone else's payments to come in. And then they tell TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. So that's why when we meet with clients individually at the FEC, we pull their credit the first time around, and then we make a follow-up appointment 1 month later, because sometimes you don't see much action until 1 month. Sometimes you don't see it until 2 months later, depending upon what everyone's issues are with that. It's absolutely right. Credit Karma draws you in a dangerous way. So unsubscribe to that. Do yourself a favor. Get your free credit report here. And an even bigger favor, make an appointment with the FEC. We are free as well, but I'll tell you more about that in just a little bit. This is the data that you really need to know when you're reading your credit report. This is the important thing. I personally don't recommend checking your credit report every month, unless, of course, you are working towards a goal of, I want to buy a house in 6 months, or I need to make sure that these old collections accounts are paid for one reason or another. Most of the individuals that we work with at the Financial Empowerment Center, and the goal can be as small as I just need help developing a budget, but budget and spending and your money handling circumstances go hand in hand with your credit. So an update of once a month is not a bad thing, but I'm going to go back to, again, that previous slide and pre-COVID. The annual credit report.com site gave you one free report from each bureau every year. And that's why every 4 months, and this is what I would say to when I used to counsel homeowners, people who were purchasing homes. So this is October, you get your Experian, November, December, January, so every 4 months, get TransUnion, 4 months later, Equifax, and then that way you loop around. That's enough credit monitoring. And along those lines, if any of you are paying someone to monitor your credit for you, why don't you cancel that subscription while you're at it? You can do it yourself by using that site, okay? You can trust me on that one. And those are the kind of folks who like Credit Karma. They easily take advantage of people's insecurities with credit. This is what I was saying earlier about credit not just being a magic number, however, okay? This is what goes into your score. The biggest piece of the pie, 35% of it is making your payments on time every month, all righty? If you have a car loan that's due on the 1st, pay it on the 31st so it's there on time. Better yet, have it automatically taken out. That way it's never late, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, think back to your kindergarten days. You pay that on time every month. You get a star on your forehead. Your score just ticks up nice and slowly, slow but steady. The next biggest piece of the factor that goes into your credit reports is the part that gets most people in trouble. And that's keeping your credit card balances low, all righty? Now, there's a lot more to this than just this number. This factor is 30% of your credit report. But the funny thing about it is this 30% is also the cue to tell you that you should never spend more than 30% of your available credit, okay? So if you have a credit card, just to make it easy, credit card with a $300 credit limit, okay? You don't ever want to max your cards out. In fact, you don't ever want to spend more than 30% of it. If your credit limit's 300, never spend more than 100, ever. Some people think you spend it all, but pay it all off. No, never even spend it all, okay? You should never spend more than 30%. And if you can, don't carry over a balance, pay it off in full every month. But as you can see, between paying it on time and keeping your card balances low, those are the two biggest components that go into getting a good score. This 35% is slow and steady. If we were all lucky enough to be millionaires and pay all your credit cards off like that, actually, I've seen people who haven't been millionaires, but who made dramatic budget cuts because they needed to increase their score. I saw somebody years ago pay off all their credit cards in 1 month, but they cut off their cable. They did without a lot of stuff. Their score went up 80 points just by paying down their credit cards. But you don't want to have the water shut off, that kind of stuff. 15% is the next biggest piece of the pie. Remember, I told you time was your friend. The longer you have credit, the better off you are. All righty. I've often joked with people, some of my younger clients, that I have credit cards older than them. And that just shows that you are steady at making your payments on time. If any of you have mortgages are usually 30 years long. That benefits you in this. 30 years of slow payments on time every month and adding up this way is terrific. 10% is to have a variety of credit. So it's actually good for your credit report to have a credit card or two, a student loan or two, a car maybe. So to have a mix of installment loans, revolving credit is actually kind of good for you. And then this 10% gets people in trouble frequently, okay? Having new credit is good once in a blue moon, okay? It's like fertilizing a plant. You don't want to put fertilizer in the plant every time you water it. You're going to kill the plant. But every couple of years, maybe opening up a new trade line, opening up a credit card is not a bad thing. But as I mentioned earlier, every time you open up a new trade line, there's a hard pull of your credit report. And when there's a hard pull, your score falls down. These are called inquiries, and inquiries will stay on your credit for 2 full years. All righty. But the further you get from them, the less damage they will do on you, all righty? So for people who don't have a lot of credit, all right, there are different ways of looking at it. I want to point out that 1 in 10 people, I believe is the last statistic that I saw, 1 in 10 people are actually what they call credit invisible. And my brother was. And I'll tell you why. Several years ago, I was talking to my brother and he said, I've got great credit. And I said, well, how do you know? He said, well, because I pay cash for everything. I pay cash for my car. I pay cash, I pay cash when I eat out. And I said, well, you probably don't have great credit. You probably have no credit. And if that's the case, if your credit invisible, that's not a terrible thing. There are ways to safely bring up your credit. So I had a really good question about closing an account. And I almost want to answer that question with a question as to why would you want to close an account? Okay. For example, if it's a credit card that you've got out there, even if you don't use it a whole lot, it's good to have that credit available, even if you don't use it. Now, some credit card companies, they will close your account if you don't use it due to inactivity, is what they say. They will send you a letter and say, well, we see you haven't used your credit card lately, so we're going to close your account. In which case, I advise people to go out and buy a pair of socks, since the dryer ate them. The cheapest thing you can. Buy a pair of socks, pay that card off, balance is zero, and that way you always have that credit available to you. Okay. If there's another part of your question, please let me know. If there's another reason why you would want to close that account, let me know. Creditors usually only close it if you're not using it, or if you max it out and you're missing payments. You can max out your credit cards, but as long as you keep making these payments on time, they'll still report it as paid on.
What if I feel that there are too many credit cards? Okay, I got too many. Number one. Oh, so I'm not trying to put my business out there. What if someone quote, unquote, feels like they had too many cards? Okay, and as well, with all these cards out there and stuff like that, it seems like, you know, you can use another card that might be better. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm thinking like, as opposed to having like a Walmart, Sears, Macy's, JCPenney's, and you know, like these 5 different cards, would it be like wiser just to have like the one Capital One card that I use at all the stores?
Right.
So that's why I was talking about closing one too, because with you know, like I'm not using it.
Right.
Been forever. And you know, so that was why I had the question.
That's a really good question, Faith, because this is something that has gotten a lot of people in a lot of troubles, that they have 12 credit cards. Okay. Now, officially speaking, I don't necessarily agree with this, but the official advice is that most lenders like to see somebody with somewhere between 8 and 12 trade lines. Now, a trade line is everything on your credit report: student loans, credit cards, mortgages, car loans. My opinion, 12 credit cards is way too many. That's asking for trouble. Okay. However, though, if each of those 12 credit cards has a $1,000 credit limit, okay, that means you have $12,000 of available credit. So even if you keep some of those cards that you don't want to use, keep them in a drawer, get them out of your wallet, but keep them so that they still shine well on you, because those help increase your score, because it shows that you have $12,000 of available credit and you only owe $200. Even if it's on one card, they don't know if those other cards are active or not. Okay. So if, however, the temptation is too much, again, and this is why to each their own, this advice is general advice, and you need to kind of go with what works for you. I have advised a lot of people in my past to close credit cards, primarily because they're not handling them well, because they're maxing them all out, that kind of stuff. But if you're not using it, what it is it's making you look good. It's making you look like a good credit risk. Walmart likes you, even though you don't use their card much. They like you enough that they've got you with an X amount of credit limit. So if I were you, if you like this idea, take out the ones that you don't use a lot, put them in your jewelry box, in your sock drawer, and maybe next March you might get a letter from Walmart saying, we see you haven't used your card in a while. Use it once, pay it off, put it back. It just shows that somebody out there trusts you enough to give you that credit availability. Does that make sense, Faith?
Yes.
Okay.
I muted myself. Oh, I thought I muted myself. Yes, it does.
Okay, great.
Miss
Great.
Regina,
Yes.
another question I wanted to ask you. This is Bernice again.
Okay.
I wanted to know, me and my fiance, well, he had filed bankruptcy
Okay.
and he's back on track. His credit is looking okay, but he has 4 cards right now. And for the first like 7 months, he was able to use the credit and put it back on.
Okay.
Now they're almost, I would say almost maxed out, but he's making more than a minimum payment, paying it like 2 weeks in advance. Like his cards are already paid already for November.
Okay.
All of them are paid, but he's reusing them.
Okay.
So he's not like paying them off like he used to,
Right.
but he's making the payment. Sometimes he'll pay like $400 or $500 on it, but then end up having to use that again.
Okay.
So he has 4 cards. He has one with like 3,500 on it. That's almost maxed out. He has one with 2,100, one with 2,000, and one with 4. I
tell you what, Bernice, this is going to sound like a really goofy answer, but first of all, I think your sweetheart needs to make an appointment to come in and talk, okay? Because this is the really nice thing to do too, because when folks keep an eye on their credit, and it's very different than what we see when we pull the credit. If I have enough time, because I know we only have until 1 o'clock, I will share one more screen with you guys to show you a strategy that I've come up with about paying down credit cards. It might be the answer that you're looking for. But the other point that Bernice has, guys, is this bankruptcy was 3 years ago or so, and it will stay on your credit report for 7 years. But again, you get that far away enough from it if you are smart with your credit in that interim period. Foreclosures are the same way. Okay. Those are the two things that knock your credit down more than anything, foreclosures and bankruptcies. But I have seen several people who unfortunately lost their houses through foreclosures. But when you get up and dust yourself off, if you are smart with your credit again, I've seen people buy houses again within 3 years, which is astounding to think, but it just shows, you have to show the character. I'd like to share this screen, Bernice, to show how to make a listing of credit cards and pay them down strategically. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Sure thing. So I want to jump back real quickly to the credit and visibility thing for you all, because there are wrong ways and right ways of building your credit. If you have no credit or very poor credit, the thing to do is open what's called a secured credit card. And there you can Google secured credit cards. When I meet with people, I give them handouts on it. The most important thing about a secured credit card is, number one, you basically have to send them the amount of money for your deposit. So if you apply for a secured credit card and you send them $500, $500 is your credit limit. Because since you're not proven, or your credit's not very good, they're going to hold on to that $500 in case you default and you don't make the payment. The nice thing about it is if you make that $500, treat it like a bank account. They're holding on to that $500. You use your new secured credit card once a month for something very tiny, cup of coffee, another pair of socks, pay it off entirely. The important thing is that you have to make sure that they report to the 3 main credit bureaus. Because again, as you guys know now, not all credit cards do. So what usually happens is after 12 months of on-time payments for this secured credit card, your score ticks up. I've seen them tick up. I've seen someone go from 0 credit to 700 in 3 months with the smart use of a secured credit card. But they have to report to TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. After 1 full year of payments, they will send your $500 back to you, convert it to a regular credit card, and increase your credit limit too. But there are right ways and wrong ways. Crystal, I'm going to want you to, if we have time at the end of this, if Katie gives us an okay, I want you to tell me about what self is, because I don't know what self is. But I think I'm almost finished with the slides, because we're going to have a big question and answer period, and we can all learn from each other. But here's the important thing. As you know, from our little pie chart, on-time payments are the most important things. If you fall behind, get back on time and stay on time. Number 2 is that 30% rule. Never spend more than 30% of your available credit. Don't apply for multiple accounts in a short period of time. There's what's called a shopping window, that if I have somebody who says, I want to see if I can get pre-qualified for a mortgage, I tell them to do all their homework at first at home, know which banks you're going to go visit, know what their interest rate is. And when you go to try to get pre-qualified for a mortgage, you go to 3 different lenders in 1 weekend. Because if the first one pulls your credit and it's a hard pull, when the second one pulls your credit, if it's within a day or two, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax will recognize that and say, hey, Regina must be shopping for a mortgage. And so they bundle it. So it's only 1 hit. So do it, do it in a very short period of time, but not different types of accounts, okay? Finally, this goes to a question that was just asked. Don't close, unless you can't help but use those cards, don't close them. Try to keep them open because it shows that somebody wants to give you credit. And then finally, back to the annualcreditreport.com site. So if you are having difficulty with credit card debt, and as I mentioned earlier, this is the biggest problem that we see. When we cover budgets and spending with people, we always suggest, can you make a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain? If you need to put $800 to pay down that credit card, some people eat out that much in a typical month. I mean, some people, give up drinking for a little while. This is in the eye of the beholder, but sometimes a short-term sacrifice has a great benefit. The other thing too, and this is because we do cover spending and budget in great detail. This is where it all starts. Knowing the difference between your needs and your wants. I could tell you years of terrible stories. I had a woman once who got a foreclosure notice came to see me. She was about to lose her house, and I asked her why she wasn't making her mortgage payment. And it's because the credit card company was harassing her. And I reminded her that she had the risk of losing her home, whereas the credit card company wasn't going to come back and take what you had bought on that credit card. And again, pay off your secured debts over your unsecured ones first, okay? So that being said, the other thing too, reach out to creditors if you are having trouble. I have a template that I share with a lot of clients where they've used it to write to credit card companies to ask for a temporarily reduced interest rate, and they've had a lot of success with it as well. I mentioned this earlier, you guys don't need to ever pay for anyone to help you. You can negotiate with your creditors directly. You can get yourself on payment plans. They'd rather have a little money than no money at all, truthfully. You can settle for less than the full balance, which I'm not a big fan of. And if we have a chance, I'll tell you why. There are formal restructuring programs. There are debt management plans, and there are some that are better than others. Advantage Credit Counseling, we are a nonprofit. Hebrew Free Loan they can help you with debt consolidation as well. There are scammers out there. I meet with people almost every day. They're sending $400 to a debt management company to do something they could be doing themselves. And finally, bankruptcy. And these are in extreme circumstances, the right thing to do. It does give you a clean slate. It does stay on your credit report for 7 to 10 years, and it does affect your credit dramatically. So at the FEC, when you work with us, we check in constantly. We also have resource referrals so that if somebody's paying $400 on a cell phone bill, I've got a whole list of cell phone plans that start at $30 a month. We meet on an ongoing basis, and the people that we work with are the ones who really run the show. So let's see. I had a lot of questions for some of you. I'm hoping you have questions for me. Does anyone want to see the chart that I mentioned about paying down credit cards? But somebody's got their hand up first.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'd like to see it.
So should we answer the question first, Katie? I'm going to let you decide how we do it while I try to bring that chart up, okay?
Yeah, while you bring up that chart, we can start with the questions that came into the chat first. So the first one was, when is it a good idea to file bankruptcy to recover your credit? So I know you said that you take a big hit on your credit, but is there a better time than others to do that?
Well, by good fortune, nowadays you have to have counseling prior to filing bankruptcy, because me personally, and again, I'll say this is personal, not professional. Personally, I've never seen bankruptcy be the answer to the problem. Okay, that's just me. Bankruptcy attorneys love bankruptcy. Boy, I sound like a real goofball, and I apologize, but bankruptcy has a tremendous impact. Things have changed dramatically when they started adding that counseling prerequisite and a post-counseling prerequisite as well. Unfortunately, I think the answer would be, it would be nice if there was a magic number. If you owe more than X, this is time for bankruptcy, but that is not necessarily the answer. Go ahead, Katie.
So the next one was, Crystal said she signed up for that self, since it reports things monthly. And so she wanted to know if that's a good way to rebuild or build credit. But I know you also wanted to know what self was. So
I do.
Better talk about it.
Yeah, Crystal, if you could tell us about that, that'd be great.
Self it's like a credit building app. So there's different plans. It starts with $25 a month. So it's like 25, 35, and you pick the duration. So the duration that I picked was 24 months. So over the next 24 months, there's going to be $35 that is going to be pulled every 10th of every month. And what they do is they put it into a like a savings account for you, and it reports every day, every month, that the payment goes in. After 3 on-time payments, they offer for you to get it would be like that secure credit card
Okay.
where you would borrow basically your own money, but then they'll be pulling the money out still. And my one of my best friends, she actually her credit score jumped like 170 points by using this because she had a lot of issues. And I am personally like 4 years off well, I have 3 more years left for the bankruptcy to be on my credit. So I decided to do it. But I was just wondering if that is something good to like build since it's reporting regularly.
Well, you know what it sounds to me like, Crystal? It sounds like it's a helper. It sounds as though they're doing something that you could do yourself, but they're kind of managing it for you. Because all of those sorts of things and holding on, I'm wondering how much they might be making every month with this product. But some people, there's nothing wrong with sometimes having a helper along those lines. But everything that you described, it sounds as though it's something that if someone had enough structure, they could probably develop something like that themselves.
But how would it report to the credit bureau though, Ms. Regina?
Oh, well, that's the good point. But what they would do is, what you interested me is when you said about the secured credit card component of things, that they give you that after 3 months of saving.
Yeah.
You can open up your own secured credit card. You can open up 3 secured credit cards if you like. Yeah, so it just sounds to me as though they're kind of like a holding station that navigates that system for you. But yeah,
at the end of the 24 months, they do take a percentage out. Because I just joined too, and I joined Kickoff. And when I joined Kickoff, my points shot up like 77 points.
Okay.
And yeah, I just pay $5 a month for that.
Okay.
I joined Self and Kickoff, and it's been raising my credit. But I still have derogatory things on my credit. That's not going to help, is it?
Well, it's an offset. It's an offset. And that's why I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, it's not just about the score. It's about the wording that lenders use. You know, if someone has a derogatory comment, if they have a collection account, or filing disputes are another one of the things that there's a lot of bad information that kind of offsets, even though the score is good, when a lender reads that and sees that someone disputes all the charges or that they are delinquent in their payments, even though the score is here, they know that this is somebody who's kind of going around the back to have that score increased.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. But I think mine is due to fall off in 2 years. So that's why I didn't understand what to do.
Exactly. I hope you don't mind, Katie, I'm going to share this real quickly because it's 1 o'clock on the dot right now. And this is a type of chart that I share with people frequently. If you have multiple credit cards and you need to pay those cards down, I'm not a fan of negotiating necessarily, because lenders usually report it as paid for less than full, and that doesn't look good for you. But if you have a multitude of credit cards, you make a chart not unlike this, where you have the card name, the limit, your current balance. Remember, you don't ever want to spend more than 30%. So I always suggest to people to like look at it incrementally. You don't want to pay it off entirely, but this is what, for the JCPenney card, $600 is 30% of the $2,000 credit limit. And by doing that, by subtracting the current balance to where you want to be, this is how much you want to pay down. The last column is the interest rate, all righty, which kind of suggests to you how much you are paying them for the luxury of holding on to this. Just based upon this little chart, and I know we're probably out of time, you know, the Discover card has it's the middle payment that needs to be paid down, but the interest rate is significantly higher than the others. And I know that was very abbreviated, but Faith has her hand up. Katie, do we need to go though?
I mean, I have time to stay on if you have time to stay on for maybe 15 minutes and just answer questions.
I do.
I will say, in the follow-up email, you'll have Regina's contact information, so you can also schedule free individual one-on-one appointments with her. So if we don't get to you, or you still have like a ton of questions, you're not out of luck. You can talk to her about all things financial and credit also.
Yes, please.
So Faith, yes, your hand was up if you want to come off mute and ask a question.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say, Regina, you are just absolutely amazing. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm learning so much. Okay, so I'm going to try to be like, a little quick. It's like a little complicated. My question, what I don't understand is interest. I don't understand interest. So here's a question, okay? If you have enough money to pay off a loan, is it wise to pay it off? Or do you just stick or keep paying the payments for the, that's one question.
Oh, so, okay, so I'll answer that one first, Faith, so I don't forget it. And here's the answer. It depends. It really does depend. It depends upon what else you have on your credit report. If you only have like 3 trade lines, see it, Crystal? If you only have like 3 trade lines, one of them is this loan, one's a credit card, and one's, I don't know, a student loan. You probably don't want to pay it off, because then you're only going to be left with 2 trade lines. And that's officially what's called a thin trade file. All righty. And that just means you don't have a whole lot of history. You want to keep, and I think that it was a question earlier that lenders like to see between 8 and 12 trade lines. That might be a little too much, but you don't want to pay off a loan if it's not a high interest rate, if it's an easy payment, and if it makes, if closing it risks your trade lines being shrunk down too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense. Okay. And the reason like I asked that question is because, and I'm so confused about interest is okay. Is interest a one-time, this is how much your interest is going to be? Or does it like fluctuate like day to day? Or, okay. And prime example is like, okay, a house. If you have a house, you're making your payments. If you pay your house like the 30 years that they say, is the interest the same as if you paid it off early?
Good question. Okay. There are as many kinds of interest as there are stars in the sky.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not kidding you. There is simple interest. There's compounded interest. There are fixed interest rates. There are adjustable interest rates. And again, it's the most boring thing in the world, but it goes back to our clay tablet. You have to read the fine print. All righty. Compounded interest is, if it's in a savings account, it's a good thing, gets you more, but compounded interest on a loan is going to kick your butt because the amount just gets bigger and bigger. So it's another one, Faith, I'm sorry.
What about, is fixed for real?
Yes, fixed is fixed for real, but again, read the terms though. Most mortgages are fixed. They stay at 4.2% for the duration of the loan. But in that fine print, you might, if you pay the loan off early, there might be a prepayment penalty, or there are just all sorts of ifs. And that's why they send you those 10 pages of tiny fine print. But fixed is fixed as when you signed it, and as long as the terms of the loan dictate that.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take up everybody's time. All I know is I'll be making an appointment.
I'll just vouch for this much. I am one of 5 counselors on staff, and my coworkers are just like, we're incredibly bright, and we're all highly certified, and all have little specialized areas of expertise as well. And we have appointments we have virtual appointments, phone appointments, Zoom appointments. We also are seeing people in person as well. Right now, I'm in Turtle Creek, and I have real life clients coming in on Wednesdays. So if you get on our site, FEC, PGH, yeah, that's it. You can schedule online, read about all of the counselors, where we are and what we do too. So.
All right. Our next question, Michaela asked, can you talk about medical bills? They heard they were counted differently. And I think this changed during COVID also, right?
It certainly did. And I think, Michaela's doing good. Okay. So here's the funny thing, Michaela, about 8 years ago, medical bills were like a huge problem. They were keeping people from getting mortgages all over the place because everybody had medical collections accounts. And then what ended up happening, it's kind of like what's happening with student loans now. Everyone got together and said, wait, these medical bills are not a problem of that person who needed the medical help. It's a problem with the agency, with the insurance, and medical businesses. So they slowly reformed that. As of now, they have made dramatic changes, so much so that for the first time, I would have never imagined this. I gave a client some advice last week to not pay a medical collection account, because beginning in the spring, they will no longer be reporting to your credit reporting bureaus medical collections of $300 or lower. And most medical collection accounts are like 30 some bucks, 90. So beginning in the spring, they are not going to be reporting those on the credit bureau reports, first of all. Second of all, they changed the timeframes for when a medical debt can go into collections. If I didn't pay my doctor after a month, he got sick of asking me for it, he'd send it to a collection account right away. Now it's a minimum of 90 days and a minimum of so many outreach attempts. But again, the important thing is, even if they do show up on your credit report, and this is why a good lender, they don't just look at the score, they read what's in that report. And if they see that somebody has 3 or 4 medical collection accounts, all from the same time frame, that might just tell them that that person had cancer 2 years ago, not that they're a bad character. And that's why lenders read the report. They don't just look at the score. Yeah, so that the world has changed as far as medical collection accounts, and it's in the process of changing for student loans as well too, for those very same reasons.
All right, another question. It looks like Donna did step off, but this might help other people. Can you get hard inquiries removed from your reports?
You cannot, and they stay on your report for 2 full years. Now, and each of those will bring your score down, believe it or not, depending upon how and when it was pulled, somewhere between 3 and 10 points, which is crazy. But the further you get away from them, the better off you are. Now, if there was a hard pull that was made without your consent, and you have to prove it, which is not an easy thing, then you can do something about that. But I always tell people to be careful with that, because if any of you have shopped around for cell phones lately or insurance, they talk this fast when you're on the phone, and they say, la, 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 and they ask to pull your credit report. And a lot of people aren't even aware of the fact that they have verbally given permission to do that. So just be careful to make sure that doesn't happen, but no, it can't come off.
All right, I think those were the questions left in the chat. If anyone else wants to type in anything or come off mute, feel free to do that. We've got a couple more minutes. But as a reminder, your follow-up email that you'll get later this week will have a recording of this event. So if you were trying to remember something Regina said, you'll be able to go back and listen to it. There will be a survey to fill out to let us know how we did today. If you leave contact information on that survey, you'll be entered to win a $25 Visa gift card as a thank you. It will also include the link asking for your pledge to vote this coming November. So again, we are nonpartisan. We're not going to say who you need to vote for. We just want to remind you that the election is coming up and how to find education materials about people who are running. So you'll get some reminders if you sign up for that. It's totally optional. And then there will be contact information for how to get signed up with the FEC for an appointment. And some of the things Regina shared, like the website for the free credit reports, I'll make sure that link is in there also. So I'll stop talking. If anyone else has a question that they want to come and ask, feel free to do so.
I have a question again. Miss Regina, I
Yes,
was
ma'am.
wondering, for like, being as though I had the SIN line of credit, so then once I did the self, it's still poor, but and it Experian, you know how they offer you the credit cards, said this was the best match for you. Do you take those credit card offers or no? Because that's how we ended up with a Capital One before. Because those were the only people that was offering at the time. But then once we took that offer, then the other offers started coming in that was way better.
Right. That's a really good question. And I think that a lot of my response, I'm going to attribute to my age. I'm an incredible skeptic.
Okay.
And I always wonder, if somebody's offering you something, what's in it for them?
Yes,
and that's really why I love working for the FEC, because there's nothing in it for us. We're completely nonprofit, don't accept any funding. We just want to see people do well. But if someone makes me an offer of, this is the kind of card you want, I want to know why. And the one luxury of having the internet is we have an onslaught of information in front of us. And you can always see if there are better business reviews. You can compare their interest rate to somebody else's interest rate. Yeah, so I would be skeptical, but read the fine print. It might be a great deal. I mean, and that's one of the other things too, as counselors, we can't endorse one product over another. I would never do that. And that's why I have to be careful when I'm bashing Credit Karma, but hey, you can't stop me. I can't stop me from doing that. But yeah, just read the fine print and do some comparison shopping if you're on. That's what I would recommend.
One more question, then I'll let you go. What about interest rates? Are they going to always be low? I mean high. Are they always going to be high in the beginning?
Oh, interest rates, was that?
Yes, ma'am. Like if you're just starting off or it's coming off of a bankruptcy or something.
Well, they will be because your score is low. Remember, the lower your score, the higher the interest rate. But as your score improves, as you get new credit, the interest rate will go down. So they pull opposite one another. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, makes sense. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. What do you think, Katie? Are we finished?
I think we might be.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for coming today and Regina for presenting. This was a lot of information and you all had wonderful questions. As a reminder, feel free to touch base with Regina for an appointment if you still have things you're wondering about or want to take a look at your personal situation. She is wonderful at working on that for you. So thank you everyone. Feel free to head out for the day and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you so
questions.
much.
Thank you.
Ms. Have a good day.